Are you confused? Well, we are too. I am very much confused. What is going on? Obviously, we had our video drop this morning discussing what Trump might do, may not do. And then we had this story drop. We have US and Canada conduct air defense drills in Greenland as Trump pushes for control. U.S. and Canadian Air Force members conducted joint military drills in Greenland in practice for action under bitterly cold conditions. Operation Noble Defender took place from January 28th through February 11th at Pituffik Air Force Base, the U.S. military's northernmost installation. According to NORAD, the roughly 100 total service members had to operate in temperatures that were regularly below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes dropping as low as negative 28 degrees. Over the last 3 weeks, our integrated American and Canadian NORAD teams have demonstrated the ability to operate the highest level in one of the most austere environments in the world, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Shimo said in a statement, which is very big news because obviously with the tensions that are going on. We currently just got this news from Donald Trump's Truth Social saying drugs are still pouring over into our country from Mexico and Canada at a very high and unacceptable levels. A large percentage of these drugs, much of them in the form of fentanyl, are made in and supplied by China. More than 100,000 people died last year due to the distribution of these dangerous and highly addictive poisons. Millions of people have died over the last 2 decades, and families of the victims are devastated and, in many circumstances, virtually destroyed. We cannot allow this scourge to continue to harm the USA, and therefore, until it stops or is seriously limited, the proposed tariffs scheduled to go into effect on March 4th will indeed go into effect as scheduled. China will likewise be charged an additional 10% tariff on that date. The April 2nd reciprocal tariff date will remain in full force and effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. God bless America. He's saying in no uncertain terms here that we are going to be seeing tariffs come March 4th, and then the reciprocal tariffs, because of our government being stupid, will be coming in April 2nd. It could get very ugly here financially if these things go through. But the confusion comes is what we talked about this morning. Is he was kind of unsure in a meeting yesterday with the cabinet ministers of he threw a couple dates out and no one was clear if he was going to push the tariffs or there was going to be additional tariff programming. What is going to happen? And discuss this all with us is Reg. Hi, what do you make of this, dude?
It's a mess. And honestly, I'm just upset that I didn't get my Canada CBSA friendship bracelet from Capitol Hill. Canada was passing those out to America to let them know how well we are doing with our American forces. And that even though those friendship bracelets probably didn't get us to our 2% of NATO spending, I'm pretty sure somebody got paid well to implement that stupid program. And I know it's kind of old news, but I had to laugh, and I need people to have a little bit of break in this because we're seeing a lot of confusion in the markets. We're seeing a lot of confusion in our world leaders. We have the Canadians aligning with the Americans to do this Air Force training, whatever you would call it. And I just find it funny because I was like, this sounds like exactly what China was doing over Taiwan with these air patrols, just kind of, flexing our might, showing our powers, showing that, hey, we can do what we want. And Greenland, frankly, it could have been Greenland, it could have been Iceland, it could have been any of the Arctic areas. I think it's just more or less to show Arctic sovereignty and to say, hey, we're here, and even though we're fighting with each other, mom and dad are still a couple. Yeah. So it's a wild day. It's just weird.
Yeah, it was a wild show of unity, as you said there. And I think it's more of a play of, all right, China, Russia, let's not get twisted. We know you're our enemy. And we're going to put you on notice that we are still together and we will fight together to make sure that you understand that we have a presence here. And I know people are going to say it already. Oh, but Trump just cut this deal with Russia. He loves Russia. No, we discussed this on this morning's episode. No, that's clearly that he wants that to end. And he wants to make sure that we're going to try and keep Russia as a minimum, try to make that separation between Russia and China as best as possible, as well as extracting what resources they can from both Russia and Ukraine at the same time.
Yeah, and we know that Trump isn't a fan of Zelensky, and the Ukrainian parliament actually just passed legislation to keep Zelensky in power, which is interesting, but that's Ukraine. They can do whatever the heck they want for their own people, so good for them. The big thing there is the fact that, Trump, as we said, he's the guy who's proclaimed himself as a deal maker. That's why we're seeing so much stuff with his tariffs and all that, which we've discussed before about, high hooks or extreme hooks. And all of this, it's really just him trying to kind of show America as being strong, as being prosperous, that America gets things done. So ending a war, securing resources, securing funding from the rest of the world. I think it's a little bit of a bully with, shaking people down for lunch money, I think, at this point.
Definitely.
But again, it comes back to the fact that he's looking to enrich the United States, that he feels is basically protecting the free world and not getting its money. But what I think is also interesting is like when he talks about Canada's role in securing the border, which he obviously feels that we're not doing a good enough job on, he doesn't explicitly say what the parameters for a good job is. And I think that's what's kind of frustrating for Canadians is that how do you kind of meet that standard? What does that standard look like? Are there underlying conversations that we're all not privy to? Definitely. But the big question is like, you're saying we're not securing the border. We've got, our police commissioner and CBSA saying we're doing all that we can. But, is it enough? And what does enough look like? And I think they even released something today.
Yeah, exactly. We saw that too with, we'll just kind of play this announcement quickly for us to show that they are saying that they're getting results in terms of seizing these drugs.
Last week, CBSA launched Operation Blizzard, focused on fentanyl. Thus far, we've found small amounts of fentanyl consistent with historic amounts. But fentanyl being what it is, small amounts can kill. And so we are working anything we find back with our RCMP and law enforcement partners and with our American counterparts. But I just want to say, every day the officers of CBSA are looking for fentanyl, they're looking for drugs, they're looking for firearms and contraband. So this is a continuation of that excellent work.
Madam President. Commissioner Jim. Yes, so for the RCMP, thank you, Minister. It's important for us that we bring the Canadian law enforcement community together. And the example I'm about to give you is a fentanyl sprint that we did from December 8th to January 18th. Under the caveat of CIROC, which is a Canadian integrated response to organized crime, which did a sprint over 45 days, and the result speaks for itself. 47 kilograms of fentanyl, over 15,000 pills, not strictly fentanyl, but other pills as well. 122 firearms and multiple arrests, over 524 arrests. So that's a success, and it's reassuring for Canadians and Americans that Canadian law enforcement are working together to address the issue.
And this is a good thing. Like, we like to hear the results coming from the head of the CBSA and as well as the commissioner of the RCMP. But the question still lies. Where has our fentanyl czar been? That's the one we all want to know. And I think that's the question I think we're all wondering, eh, Rich?
Yeah, and seriously, but before we get into that, Operation Blizzard, I just like, of all of the names you could call a white substance, like breakdown or crackdown, like just funny.
I love that you used the word crackdown too.
Yeah. You got to keep it light, you know? Anyway, but yeah, it is questioning, where is the fentanyl czar in all this? Because that was a direct ask from the United States. And I think when we talk about what does success look like, the fact that we're not hearing from him, the fact that he's not out there standing with these two where he rightfully should be, maybe that's part of the problem too. I think that if anybody's going to advocate for the work that's being done, the fact that also there's over 500 arrests done within the matter of, a little over a month. Like, to me, what upsets me with that is that, I think it's great that that's happened. I have two thoughts though. It's like, you knew where these people were, and you knew, and it goes back to, Sam's whole book, Willfully Blind, right? It's, you took a blind out of this because it wasn't convenient. There was no political will. Now there's political will. These people have been arrested. Number two, though, will our legal system allow those people to actually remain in custody? And I think that's part of the problem too, is that we need to basically say to the Americans, we've amended our criminal code. People who are going to be caught are actually going to stay in jail. And that was something that the Conservative Party actually put out there. And we heard from Rick Perkins in our interview with him saying basically that that's something that's lacking, that we need, is to actually say, we're amending the rules here so that we can actually treat these people like murderers, because that's what's happening with fentanyl. And that's exactly what Trump spoke to in his tweet. So I think those are some actions that we could actually tangibly take. But we can't do that with a prorogued government. So yeah, we can just make baseless claims and baseless promises. And that's exactly where we're at, right? Where we are facing this
we've been facing this onslaught for the past couple months. And where's our government been? Well, no, we've been frozen. Don't know where they are. They are out running a liberal leadership campaign. That is what's going on. And they're throwing out claims like this. We have Chrystia Freeland, who is one of these people who was actively in this government, who is now not anymore, but was in this government as the financial advisor. As a financial minister. And she made a promise during this liberal leadership debate the other night saying that I will increase our spending of NATO, our 2%. We'll make and fulfill our promise of 2% of our GDP to NATO, and I will do it by 2027. And we both looked at each other and said, yeah, right. Yeah, right. And then we had Marc Garneau, who came out and said, anyone who promises to bring Canada's defense spending to 2% of GDP by 2027, that's 2.5 years, does not understand military procurement, and it can't be done just through well-justified military salary increases. And to get an idea of Marc Garneau, he former member of parliament, retired Royal Canadian Navy officer, and former astronaut who served as a cabinet minister from 2015 to 2021. So here's the thought. He's a liberal, okay? And you had Chrystia Freeland come out here and says, just watch me. The arrogance of these people is disgusting.
I don't know. I kind of love it. I love her saying that because like it's the most aggressive thing we've seen out of the Liberal Party. Like Chrystia Freeland has bigger balls than all of the other Liberals put together because at least, she told Trudeau where to go with the whole thing. And it's funny when you made that mistake earlier about her being the financial advisor. I think she was a financial advisor because we know that Carney was actually the minister, but history will say otherwise, but whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. I think that when she says, just watch me, I do think that there are ways to mobilize money and ways to actually maybe change line items. Like if we are going to hire a crap ton more border services, can we consider that defense? Because we are defending our border. We are stopping the flow of people, drugs, firearms, anything we don't want crossing the border. So is that in essence defending Canada? Is that defending the States? I think an argument could be made. We'd have to talk to our American counterparts and see if they would agree. We'd also have to talk to the rest of NATO, see if they would agree. But I think that there's ways you could do it. But 2% of many billions of dollars is still, I think that would be hard. But I do think that what you could do is you could put out RFPs for different projects, Arctic bases. You could put out RFPs for new ships, new helicopters. Like God knows we need to replace the Sea Kings. Mm-hmm. If anybody's familiar with our Air Force, and there's a reason why there's a show out there called the Royal Canadian Air Farce. It's because it's not far from the truth. And I say that with lots of love and respect to our servicemen because they are also mad about the fact that they are using 1980s, 1970s equipment, which they shouldn't be because it's not fair to them. They're putting their lives on the line. So I think that there's ways they could do it, whether they get to that full 2%. I don't know if that's totally possible. I mean, that's only we're in 2025 right now.
Yeah.
That would be very, very challenging. But if you had a government with the political will, I do think that they could probably do it. I mean, we just watched 500 people get rounded up for fentanyl. So obviously when there's a will, there's a way. So she might be right.
Yeah. The problem with your statement though, Reg, is that you're giving these people the benefit of the doubt. And quite frankly, I don't want these people to be the ones who are making that decision because we know what would actually happen, what their plans would be. We're like, we'll get there. We're just going to borrow it all and say we did it. We'll say we spent X amount of money on 5 things when that money really could have gone to 50 things. But because we made sure the number went higher, that means we're putting resources to it. And that's their understanding. That's how they've ran this government past several. And that's exactly what likely would happen if she got in power, and hopefully pray to God that doesn't happen.
No, what you'd see them get out their binder of the Mark Carney family of companies and go, oh, yeah. Where's our green guns? Yeah. We need some biodegradable bullets and some,
True.
some eco-friendly tanks. Yeah. And that way we can go into the bold new future with our, the military is green in color, so therefore it must be green for the environment too, right?
Boom, nailed it.
Perfect.
Yeah, got it.
Excellent. New campaign, hire us, Liberal Party.
Yeah, and with that, just to end off, just for the kicks and giggles, many people have already seen this already, but I still think it is hilarious. You still have the Canada's Chihuahua getting out there talking about how we need to ban Trump from Canada.
I also believe we need to ban Donald Trump from attending the G7 summit.
Sorry for the G7
Donald
summit.
Trump should not be welcome here. Why would we invite someone who has threatened our very democracy, our very sovereignty? Why would we?
All right, we get the point.
Yeah, shut up, Jagmeet Singh. Nobody wants to hear you.
Seriously, when we're in the midst of these types of like tensions, again, all of these, like, I love how their response is, I'm going to punch Donald Trump in the mouth. Like that's what they're trying to do here. And it's like, just, you have no real political persuasion in Canada. Stop talking. No one wants to hear from you.
Well, I mean, haven't you seen the ads? They're all over YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else gets this, but because like I hold very centrist views, so I get all the conservative content and then I get all the left-wing content as well. So sometimes my algorithm gets real confused because I get 1,000,001 Jagmeet Singh ads before anything I watch.
Classic.
And it's just like him in this like dark gym, and he's like got his tank top on. He's like, I didn't plan on becoming a politician. He's like taping up his wrists and everything. He's like, but sometimes, you need to, and I'm sitting there going, you need to follow the money and realize that the easiest way to wealth, power, and fortune is through the government because you've got a friend in Justin Trudeau. Like maybe, but I just feel bad for the other people who are kind of, been classic NDP supporters and who really believe in the good things of the left, where it's, taking care of your neighbors, making sure that people don't fall through the cracks, making sure that people are supported. And then they've got this guy as their mascot. And it's fun to watch their brains melt a little bit because they're kind of like, I don't like Jagmeet Singh, but I'm still NDP. It's interesting. So, give some of your left-wing friends a hug because they're dealing with that idiot.
Yeah. And we'll wrap this up with, what we started with, and that's the confusion that our show semi had this morning, what Trump was saying to his cabinet ministers yesterday. And admittedly, it confused the Financial Post. White House says March tariffs remain the plan as Trump's comments draw confusion, and it confused us as well. Trump was asked during a cabinet meeting on Wednesday whether he planned to move forward on imposing the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico on March 4th. Trump announced the levies earlier this month, but then subsequently agreed to a month-long delay after leaders from both countries, yada, 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 we know this. I'm not stopping the tariffs, Trump said before describing how he believed the U.S. had been victim. But Trump later said that Mexico and Canada tariffs would be implemented on April 2nd. It wasn't clear if the president meant that he was giving the countries additional time or had conflated the Canada-Mexico tariffs with a separate program under development by the Commerce Department U.S. Trade Representative. And so that was where all the confusion was yesterday, was where is he going with this? And that's why the markets react the way they did. It was always pushing these off. We're going to see it April 2nd instead. And then boom, hits us with that Truth Social post today. It's like, no. We don't want y'all confused. They're staying in place. And then we're going to throw on more tariffs April 2nd. So,
yeah. And I mean, frankly, it falls in line with the fact that we've got our foreign affairs minister, Melanie Joly, going down there and crapping on America when she should be cognizant of the fact that this is a man who needs some ego fluffing. Like, let's be real. Like that's what he wants. It's like, okay, so if we know that, we get our partner feeling good, we start talking about what we want, we talk about what they want, maybe we can throw it an extreme hook, see if we can use their tactics on. No, she gets out there and is just like, America is the worst and they're sending their guns over across our border, so therefore they're just as bad as us. And it's like, how is any of that helpful?
I'm going to Europe.
Yeah, you could totally bring that into the conversation in a constructive way. But going out to the media and crapping on America and crapping on Trump is not how you engage in good negotiation. And anybody who has read anything on getting to yes, getting to no, classic books on conflict negotiation would look at this and scream, because you don't insult and demean your counterpart, because as soon as you start blaming and shaming, you've lost. And the problem is that they're doing that to us. And so it might feel like that's the thing to do back. But in this case, they have the power. We know that they have the power. So therefore we have to be a little more agile, a little more nuanced, and be very careful and intentional with what we say, how we say it, who's delivering it is the other part too.
Yeah.
So that we don't look like a basket case and we don't look confused, because they are confusing us with the things that they're putting out there, and whether that's purposeful or not, because that's also up for debate. We need to be kind of smarter in this, because we don't have the money, we don't have the power, we don't have the population to not be. And by putting out not our best, I'll say, with Melanie Joly, it's not looking good for Canada.
And we're going to keep a track on all this and keep an eye on it and report it back to you guys. You all are awesome. Have yourselves a good one. We're out.